So one of the things I think is really interesting when you do data analysis is actually collecting the data. And you might think that that doesn't make that big of a difference, but in my experience, it makes a massive difference depending on when you collect that data, where you collect it from, and often, so what I'll find is I collect some of my data from government sources, and that data changes every single time whenever I start looking at it. So when I gather some more data, it'll be the exact same information, trying to get information from the same source, but the different government sources that I gather it from, they either change a field name, or they add some sort of descriptive, or change the data slightly, change how they sort of present things. And every year it goes through this. Every time I go through this, and it's something that's important to remember, is that we look at data. Whenever you look at data, in whether it's a paper or whether you're analyzing something or whatnot, you sort of assume that data is perfect, right? So most studies, you'll see this, and I almost I chuckle because I know it's not possible. You'll see studies with perfect data in it, and everything kind of lines up perfectly. And I'm always like, where do they get that from? Because that's certainly not my experience. It is an incredibly messy process just to collect data. And there's never any sort of clear, I don't really have sort of a clear sense on, what is appropriate with the data. And when I see too perfect data, which is often, I get quite suspicious when I see this, whenever it is presented. So I actually like to look at the data itself, or get a picture of the data or something like that, because I often see that it's far different than what most people sort of present. And once you start looking at it, you're like, oh my gosh, this should be clean. This should be pretty straightforward. It's government data. It should be entirely straightforward. There's nothing tricky with any of this stuff. And you go to do it and you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, this changed. And that changed. And that change, that occurs all the time. That's the norm, is to have all sorts of different changes with the data. And then how you handle that is the challenge, right? So I think the norm in most research is to kind of hide that. And because the review process, a reviewer is going to sort of throw out your idea if there's even a small problem with it. They just do. So I think we need to get away from that. We need to really start concentrating and sort of picking up on the fact that data is inherently messy. Real world data is inherently messy, even when you pull it from clean, quote unquote, clean sources, right? That should be clean. And we need to start having an open conversation about what real data looks like, and start handling the real data rather than the sort of pre-processed data that looks completely perfect after you take a look at it. It's never been my experience to look at any real-world data that's not pre-processed to have weird things going on in it. That you're like, wait, that's bizarre. And yet that's kind of the norm. And you have to sort of figure out how to go through that and make sense of it. And I think we just need to be more open with it and stop. The norm in what we do is, not only present this beautiful data, but also to present the story first and then get the data to match the story, which is exactly what hypothesis testing is. The problem with hypothesis testing is that you get the data after the fact to match the theory that you're trying to create. And, that happens far too often. And I think that is actually the norm with scientific research. And we just need to be more open and say that, wait a minute, why are we pretending that we're doing this? And instead just be open and have that conversation of what real world data looks like. It's going to take a lot of work to present that, and I don't think it's easy to be honest, with it, because of the fact that reviewers will shut down ideas very quickly. But I think we need to start moving there, and I think we need to start having more conversations about what real world data actually looks like. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.